All right. So today's episode, we're going to talk to Dimitri and Bruno from Sonderegger AG, Sonderegger.ch. These guys are crazy. They want you to challenge them on design, on structure. We're going to talk about laser engraving, micro embossing, foiling, all the different things that you think you've heard of, but you've never seen, and you have no idea how to use them. And if you've seen them before, you've never seen them the way that Sonderegger does them. So stay tuned to this episode because you're going to learn so much, and hopefully you can reach out to these guys and learn a lot more. Let's do it. I'm so stoked to have you guys on here. Finally, I got Dimitri and Bruno. How do you pronounce the name of your company?
It's pronounced Sonderegger.
Sonderegger. Perfect.
Exactly.
Good one.
Yeah, I'm trying. One, we met in Monaco. We had drinks, plenty of drinks.
Yes.
And I got to know you guys pretty well, which was awesome. For the people that don't know you, what do you do? What do you specialize in?
And I knew that part. Explain where we come from and how it all started.
Well, how far back you want to go?
let's keep it brief, but let's go back.
Well, actually, business started in 1966, founded by my father. And the first 20 years, he basically produced just X-ray envelopes. In 86, when I finished my studies, I just came as a volunteer for 2 years because I wanted to keep on studying in Paris. And within those 2 years, I realized that these X-rays, they will disappear. So I said to my father, if you want to survive, you got to have to find a new strategy. And you also are running out of space. You have to build a new building. But he was not ready whether to find a new strategy nor building a new building. So I got involved when I was quite young, and I took the business over. And since then, I started facing two directions, still with this sort of a niche strategy, trying to do envelopes, presentation folders, press folders, all that stuff in high quality. And step by step, all the establishment came behind, like embossing, hot foil stamping, laser cutting. And then we realized that the doors are quite open on companies out of the watch industry here in Switzerland. So we tried to push the limits. And since then, strategy more or less stayed the same. Like we try to do things nobody wants to do or nobody can do. Nobody can do within this short period of time. And we always try to reach the limit. And quite soon we realized that reaching the limit, it's hard to say where the limit is. If you want to know where the limit is, you got to have to depass. You have to go beyond. And that's something we do basically, I would say, every week. Like if there is a customer and asks us at very high embossing, we get the die ready. We make the embossing. Most probably the customer is satisfied, but we don't know. We don't have the answer. Was that the limit? Therefore, often we produce an extra die or an extra 2 or 3 dies to figure out where actually was the limit, and then we have to answer. The limit is there on with that design, with that paper. Today, that won't mean the limit is there still tomorrow because we improve. So we keep that mind or that setup. We try to keep on going.
So when you're talking about the limit on an emboss, right? So if we've got an emboss and it's this deep, you produce a couple extra dies that might be taller, sharper. And how do you know when it's past the limit? Like, what are the things that you see?
When the machine starts to cry.
All right, let's take a quick second to talk about idpdirect.com. Go right to that website, download the design guides, the sustainability guides, the recyclable icon guide, which basically lists out all the different icons. It gives them to you in vectors. You can drop them right into your artwork right now, today, and go right into production. All right, back to the pod.
No, it's often we try to challenge ourselves. If we see an embossing which is quite interesting and quite challenging already from the beginning on, we want to know and we want to find out how high can we go. And then we just order 2 additional toolings, 2 additional cliches, and then we try it out. And sometimes it works just for a small quantity, and sometimes we have to figure out how does that work for a bigger quantity. But you see that quite quickly if it works or not.
Yeah.
And most of the time, the limit is the paper. Once it starts to crack or it starts to fold, bend in all directions, But there was plenty of job. We didn't estimate that it was possible, and at the end it was possible. And that reminds me one of those nice sentences from Hemingway. They said it's impossible, so we did it. Which I quite like.
Dude, no, that's awesome, man. What stood out to me, and you were kind enough to send me some sample, like a lot of cool, really cool samples. What I see with all of these is the precision in assembly, right? Everything lines up perfectly. There's a lot of care that goes into each one of these items. Even looking at some of these, like this walker, which looks beautiful with this lighting, like you can really see that.
Yeah.
But I can look at it and it almost disappears. You're creating a lot of these different things. So with all the things that you're creating, you have all these wonderful tools at your disposal to create amazing new packs, new different constructions, and new techniques. Why do more brands not use these types of techniques? Is it they're afraid, or they don't know, or why do you think that more brands are not using these?
I think it's a combination of what we on one hand often see is that the graphic designers in the beginning, they have to know about the technologies, know about the possibilities. That's why we often try to invite the graphic designers to our building, to our house, to explain them the technique in front of the machine, because then you realize, how does that work? How does that work on the paper? Where can we play around? The other part is definitely the client in the end. If he is willing to try something out, then it's quite easy for us and for the graphic designer to come up with some special things.
But I think, as you mentioned, the biggest issue is that there are so many graphic designers, they're not aware what's possible meanwhile. And if they're not aware what's possible, whenever they come up with a suggestion to a customer, we could do it with laser edging, or we could do hot foil stamping, micro embossing with UV, or with offset overprint, all that stuff. Of course, there are also a lot of good graphic designers, but there are so many, they're just sitting behind the computer and taking the inspiration out of Pinterest and Instagram. And we try to push the limits, go forward. And you got to have to make a break and to realize what's possible meanwhile. And that changes, I would say, every month. Every month we come up with something we haven't done before.
All right. So I want to go through some of these samples with you and just ask you some questions about them. And then we'll kind of get into some other stuff too. But this technique on here, tell me about this. What is this?
It's a laser engraving. So we just burn away the first surface of the cardboard. And that specific product we came up with the idea. I was visiting the client, the partner in Switzerland, and we were chatting around. And then he was like, okay, how can we do something special? And we just took what was already in their design language implemented. And we came up with this idea, working with the laser engraving on a cardboard. And also sustainability wise, it's quite interesting because you don't add anything, you just take away the first surface.
The color that I'm getting here is the second layer of the paper.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. If you do a laser engraving, you cannot influence the color. So the color is given by the process of burning. So sometimes it's more brownish, but some other papers, they react. And for example, we had a blue paper, and with the laser engraving, it get turquoise. So
wow.
You always have to test it out. You can't say from the beginning on, yeah, that's going to be brown, and it's going to be blue, it's going to be green.
You just have to test it.
Yeah.
You want to see sample or not?
You got some? Yeah, let me take a look. And I'm looking at this one too, right? So this is a really light layer, and then the walker feels like a deboss, but it's actually engraved also.
The thing is, with the laser, you can work on 65 different layers. So, for example, if you have a grayscale picture, theoretically, you can do a laser engraving which ends as a 3-dimensional picture. But therefore, specific for the Walker one, we did a rastered laser engraving, and the logo on top, the letters, we tried to make it even deeper, to give a little bit that footprint into the cardboard.
And then the construction of this box.
Yes.
Right? So we've seen a lot of different rigid boxes where the paper folds over and wraps, and it's like a standard wrap, and you can see a little bit of like on a typical box, you would see a little bit of an overlap happening here and here, but you don't see that with this one, right? It's like, did you laser cut the inside and then fold up? Like, how do you make a box like this?
Actually, the box is quite similar made as furniture. So you cut out a 90-degree angle and then cut out the edges. So in the end, you would have a cross and then fold it up, and you just glue in the edges. That's why you don't have any layovers glued around the corners. And it's a new technology we have since 1.5 years, and we call it box.
So then you've got your board, you do a 90-degree engraving in there, and then it folds up. So really you can adjust that angle. It doesn't have to be 90 degrees. You can make any type of angle.
For example, you can see it in here.
Yeah.
That's a 90-degree angle. And it goes up and it gets glued automatically by the machine. So this allows you to produce smaller quantities, but also higher quantities.
Again, it goes back to that precision.
Yeah.
Right? It's like there's no room for error on these corners because that's all you see. And then on the top of it, you just see the board. You don't see the paper fold over, which is, and it sounds different, which is weird. But like I hear my hand go over it, and it sounds like a solid piece. It's like good. Sounds like a piece of wood.
But that's the same thing. If you are talking about preciseness, if you have a box, for example, I think you should also have this one.
Yeah, it's right there.
And here again, we worked on the inner part again with that system of the angles, which allows us to take out the bottle.
Yeah.
And then reuse the inlay because we have again that 90-degree angle.
The idea there was also, since this is a little bottle of gin, which is empty quite fast, and avoiding that the box got thrown away, give the box a second life, so you can take the inlay out and put some any batteries or iPhone cables or whatever you like. So you reuse the box.
You've been doing packaging, starting X-ray envelopes, then folders, and now insane packaging for many years, 3 generations worth.
Yeah.
But then you decided to make a gin because that's your gin, right? Be bold. So how do you go from making X-ray folders to making packaging to making a gin?
Well, actually it started during COVID. We had some spare time and we started to play around in the cellar producing a gin. Then a customer comes up and asks us more than 1,000 bottles because he liked the gin so much. And then we decided, well, let's go into the gin. But being honest, it's not a target business. We just do it because we love to do it and because we can do it.
I know this is a packaging podcast, and you guys are doing amazing packaging, and then you do the gin. So you said a couple of things. You said one, you gave me the Hemingway quote. They said it was impossible, so we did it. Same thing here with the gin is we love it. We want to do it, so we did it. And then the other thing you said was with the embossing and anything that you're doing, is like you can't find the limit until you break through that limit. This is not the typical conversation that I have with packaging people. Packaging people are like, all right, we needed this. This was the solution. We made it. We figured it out, blah, blah, blah. But you guys are like, customer wants this. We're going to push it to the limit. Push it to the limit. We're going to go way beyond. But I think this comes from another aspect of your lives, which is the death-defying skydiving that is in your blood. Right. There is no limit with you guys. You guys are insane. So I think, Bruno, you're in the Guinness Book of World Records. Tell us about that.
Quite a while ago. That's the first time European beat the Americans with the biggest free fall formation, because before it was always the Americans who built the biggest formation. At that period of time, it was 100 way, which means 100 skydiver in one formation. And we did 126 way in Belgium with the Belgian army, jumping out of 2 Hercules airplanes with oxygen, so we could climb to 6,000 meters and build 126 way. And yeah, it's a thrill, and it's another life. When I met my wife, I told her first was skydiving, then I started the business, and it was you. But that won't mean that the scale is still the same as importance. But I have the feeling my first part of my life I spent skydiving. So until 40, I was in the Swiss national team, and we made 2 world medals, championships, and where we won. And I don't know how many times a Swiss champion. And I mean, it's a sport like artists. It sounds like thrilling, but it's far safer than a mountain bike or any other sports.
Yeah, because you only fall once.
If you gotta have a malfunction, then you still have a certain altitude. You have a second chance of your reserve. So which happened 7 times in my life, and you get rid of the main parachute and you pull your second parachute, and you land safely.
If finding your spec data is a wild goose chase around your office, you've got a data problem. Specr is the only cloud-based management specification solution that every brand needs. Because if you don't spec right, you'll spec wrong. If we're going to push this emboss, we're going to go to the limit, and you're going to figure it out, and you're going to back out of that. And then I think you came up with a way to have the most skydives in a day. There was a limit to how many skydives you can do, but I think you built a whole nother system of people packing, and
I mean, we definitely do not have the record in how many skydives you can do a day. But when we started with our team, we were packing our parachutes by ourselves, and then realized that we're losing lots of energy and time while packing our parachute. And then we came up with packers, which means that we had 2 gears, and instead of folding our parachutes, we jumped out, landed, debriefing, threw the parachute, and grabbed the second gear. So instead of making 6 train jumps a day, we made 12, and not being exhausted at the 12th jump, because packing takes also certain power, bringing all that stuff together in the container. So that was sort of a new idea, but I wouldn't say that we invented that. There were other people who have done that before, but we made it sport-wise. When we started in Switzerland, everybody said, "You guys are crazy. Let me parachute packed by somebody else." But meanwhile, it's normal. It's state of the art.
Yeah. Well, that I think that says a lot about you, your son, your company, right? Is this state of the art? Right? You're looking at pushing the envelope, not being satisfied with just a regular emboss, a regular deboss. Like, we're getting into lasers, we're getting into pushing materials beyond their limit. And I think if anybody's out there and they're looking for like create new, interesting packaging, one, definitely go to your website, look at your Instagram for some inspiration, but then also reach out to you and say, this is kind of where I want to go. What can we do? You know, because I also have like this example here, which is a foil, right? And you typically see a foil stamp. It's just stamped on the paper, a logo, a piece of art, but this goes beyond that. So what is this?
Well, that's when we started with that technology about making these boxes. We were quite curious. Can we manage to make a hot foil precise to the bottom of the box? And we wanted to push that limit, and because there are different steps. First, you cut the paper, you apply the hot foil, then you make this a 90 degrees crease, and you build the box. And the other thing is bringing a micro embossing on top of the box with this camouflage design. Mm-hmm. And we didn't know if the letters are still readable since we have so different angles on the micro embossing. And so to know that, you have to run through the process. And finally, we were quite satisfied with the result, and so are the customers. And that gives us, in a way, also the security facing to a new project, what's going to work, what is not going to work. Because, but on the other side, like Dimitri mentioned before, often we are confronted with projects with customers of ours, and we make a suggestion. And often is also a suggestion we do not have the security that it's going to work. So we gotta have to run through tests, and we need to find the customers who are having the balls, the balls. Follow us and say we run through the process. We don't know if it's going to work. If it's going to work, most probably it's the first time you have seen that. And that's sort of a challenge that we take a lot of risk on our shoulders, and the graphic designer takes risk on his shoulders, but also the customer need to be willing to take a certain risk to go beyond this line. And if he's willing, then we have the chance to produce something unique. And otherwise, he can return and print the CMYK, and definitely can say it's possible. But he never has the chance to produce something unique.
Right. Well, that's the thing is, if we don't know what the limits are, we don't know that we can create this, then nobody's going to create this. So a typical process is you have a foil, you've got a stamp, you just press it, there's heat and pressure applied. So with this, is the foil die, is there a foil die that has this texture, or you just stamp this and then apply the micro embossing?
No, it's the die who makes the structure. So you can change within the process. You can change the foil from gold to black to any other colors, and you still have the same design in different colors. But it's the die.
But is there just one die? The stamping die has the texture.
Yeah. Finally, it's okay. I would say the process of producing is not more expensive than applying a regular flat gold foil, unless the dye is a little bit more expensive. But once you have the dye, it's a regular process. So I would say it's not even. I wouldn't say it's expensive. I would say it's rather cheap. What's important is the idea, as always, with graphic design.
Well, that's a big thing we talk about here is it's all about the idea, right? If you don't have the idea, it doesn't matter what you create. It's not going to be exciting. It's not going to be fun. And I think for some of this stuff, we've got this laser engraving here, but then also, it's layers of corrugate with that precision. The alignment here is insane. And it's that laser cutting, right? Like this creates such a cool.
Actually, that one is that's a normal die cut.
This is not laser. No. Wow. And I thought it was laser because of I thought you stacked these layers and then just cut it out because it's so precise.
No, actually it was done layer by layer. So first of all, we cut it out the S form, and then we layered one on each other on top of it. So it's layered, and therefore we built an own machine, and that's maybe another quite important part of our structure of our process is in-house, the whole team who makes the dream work in the end. So there's a fun fact about our company structure of the whole team. Nobody from our whole team of 30 team members comes out of the printing industry. So we have some mechanics, we have carpenters, and that makes it even more creative because you are thinking from different angles. And if you mix these ideas and these point of views, it gets even more interesting to come up with new ideas and new possibilities, because the technology in the end remains most of the time the same. It's still hot foil stamping as we are practicing since ages. But the longer you do it, the better you know the machine and the possibilities. And then you come up with some new crazy ideas, which nobody else could maybe imagine or you have done it.
What's the craziest? So what's the one project that sticks in your mind as this was the craziest, this was the coolest thing we've ever made? Or is that every project?
First of all, I would say it's difficult because there are so many NDAs we signed. Yeah. So it's most probably one of those projects where we signed NDAs. So also the stuff we sent you, there's so many jobs we can show here in our showroom, but we have not the possibility to bring it online or to bring it down.
Yeah, and if I show anything that I'm not allowed to show, you just tell me and I'll take it out of here. But yeah, this, dude, this thing is crazy. One, the board weight on here. Oh, that's what it is. So you've got, so one, this envelope feels super, super stiff and sturdy. And you've actually, I thought it was like just folded over like a regular envelope, but no, this is a panel. This is a panel. And then you've got these panels that are glued in here to create the pocket. And I mean, you can hear that. And then we have a really sharp stamping on the front. And then this back, that is insanely sharp. Like I can feel each of the ridges for that impression. Is that the board in combination with the stamping that's creating that sharp of an impression?
I would not say that the board is an important thing on that specific product. It's more the man behind the machine who makes the preciseness of the stamp in the end. And that's maybe when you were asking about, what's your most astonishing project you have been doing in the last years? There's one, I'm quite proud of it because the tooling producer told us in the beginning that's not possible. And the foiling distributor told us the same, because doing thin hot foil stamping with a white foil is the biggest challenge you could have. But as you can see.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Is that a matte foil?
It's a matte white foil, yeah.
Okay. So then what did they tell you? They said the thin foil will probably stick and it'll fill in all the holes.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Those are the typical problems.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All the holes will be filled in the end, and the O's and the A's are going to be closed. And
you said you don't know me and my dad.
No, we just said, how do you know? Did you try that out before? And then the answer was no. So how can you say it's not possible? And then we tried it out and we found a way to put it into real.
Yeah. And you're kind of seeing that here too. It's like this tiny type.
Yeah.
Again, most people say, no, don't do tiny type.
I mean, it's always the same discussion we have with the machine producers when they visit us with their clients to show the possibilities on the machine. And some days or on some moments, they try to break us a little bit, showing what we are able, because they are afraid if they see what we are able to do, the client who is going to buy the new machine thinks, okay, easy. If they can do it, we can do it as well.
I can do it.
All right. There's another funny story. I got invited to hold a keynote to our supplier from the hot foil stamping machine, which is the hot foil stamping machine Swiss banknotes get produced. And I remember talking to this audience, and once I shout out this sentence, I was not sure if the supplier of the machine is happy with, because I said, don't believe what supplier tells you what's possible with the machine. Find it out.
Right.
Because if you ask the supplier, often he tells you this is not possible, but you gotta have to find it out, and often it's possible.
And that's just it, right? They're afraid to say what's possible, but it also depends on the person, the operator, right? Because I can have the machine and not produce what you produce, right? I don't have the experience. I don't have the knowledge to achieve that. So they're going to tell you, this is the baseline. Anybody can make this. Yeah. Now, if you want to make these things, you got to be Sonderegger.
Look,
I think that should be on the documentation.
It's like Maverick said, it's the man in the box.
Comes down to the man or woman in the box.
Which is important.
That's right. And you guys are the man in the box. I mean, this stuff is insane. Like these are some of the craziest, most detailed cutouts. Yep. And we've got this GF Smith thing. You guys are partnered with GF Smith on a couple things.
Yeah, but with that imitation, it was the same thing. The graphic agency realized how we can work with the different technologies, and that's why the product in the end is what it is. So that's always, I would say that's always our biggest challenge, to bring over the knowledge of ourselves, of the possibilities, to the graphic designers, that they can work with it.
Yeah. And, And tell me if I'm showing something I'm not supposed to show.
You cannot open it.
Okay.
But you can
Right. So we won't open it. But this is, you've got laser cutting. And then on the inside, you have foil with micro emboss.
Yes.
Well, you can show the
Right,
micro
so
emboss.
now-
So you have to fold behind.
So,
Yeah,
you've got this micro emboss happening.
yeah.
And you can see there's like different layers and ridges happening. Like that's, again, now you're combining things.
That's a car we just recently produced last year in December. It was an NDS card for Sigpa. It's the same card you were holding into the camera a few minutes ago with the thin lines and laser cut. What we did in here is a full space micro embossing, and then we did a 4-color overprint in offset. And after the offset print, we applied another film, and we did an embossing of the logo.
So, I mean, these are multiple processes that are happening one after the other, and you don't know how they're going to work on top of the previous process until you try it.
Yeah, I mean,
And if it doesn't work, you figure something else out.
That was actually the fact with that project from Sigpa, because we came up with that idea, overprint a micro embossing, but we didn't know if the offset color hooks up to the micro embossing. And we just make the suggestion, and they were happy about it. And so if you are willing, we're going to run through the process. And on the first attempt, we didn't, succeed. But then we changed the films for the print, and finally it was possible. And it started with the first card of Sigpa, and since we now have the knowledge how to do stuff like that, a lot of other customers hooked up and said, well, I want to have something similar with another design, with another color, with another hopeful stamping or whatever.
Yeah, you created a new way to communicate. You created something new, right? And you're not going to create something new if you just keep doing the same old thing. You guys don't. And then, so what about quantities? So when we're talking about, going to Sonderegger for some of these projects, are we talking about millions of units, hundreds of thousands of units, or thousands of units? Like, what's realistic for doing some of these processes?
I would say one piece is the minimum quantity. Half of a piece is quite difficult. And then it goes up to a few hundred thousands. So that's maybe another advantage we have with our whole machinery and the building, that we are able to produce smaller quantities, but also higher quantities. Now we just mix and arrange the mechanics and the machines differently.
Because you're not staffed with the typical designer or the typical operator, and you've got a variety of different people in there. You've got engineers, craftsmen, yourselves with all this experience. Then you're able to just retool things and make things happen, and you don't have that limitation, right? Where typically at a manufacturer, the people that have been working there have been in manufacturing, and there's all those limitations in their mind of, I can't stamp white small because of these things, even though they've never tried it, but they've heard it so many times.
Yeah.
These are limitations that you put in front of you. I can't do this quantity because of these reasons. But you guys are more like, fuck it, let's find out, right? You guys are just, you're just gung ho. And I think that's what's fun. And it's kind of what's missing in a lot of design today, is being bold enough to try and find out, right? Because that's all we're doing, is we're creating. And when you're creating, you're going to mess up, you're going to make mistakes, but you're going to learn, and you're going to get better and better and have better solutions.
That's why the gene calls be bold.
Yeah, because you guys are crazy. You guys are nuts. But I love it. And that's the thing that's missing. I think this excitement in design, because it looks, you can see how much you love doing what you're doing, and the approach that you take. There's so many different processes that you're using. I'm assuming this is a laser on here. And then you also have the same, 90-degree cut that's happening on these boxes. And then going back to that precision, these boxes fit like a miracle. I mean, they are so tight and smooth, but they release really beautifully. And that's coming from the geometry and just the knowledge of how to build these things. So if somebody's trying to create something really cool and new, then, you guys are definitely a team that they should be reaching out to. I don't know, there's just so much stuff happening. I've got so many samples here I want to show everybody, but I'll take some pictures and put them on here. With this foil stamping, tiny type. You even have a barcode in foil, which what's the first thing everybody says with barcodes? It has to be black. You cannot do foil, you cannot do any other color. And here you are proving everybody wrong again. So really cool stuff. I think people need to check you guys out. Definitely go follow you, learn more about what's possible. This is a lot of, again, as a packaging designer, for me, this is super fun because I can see in all of these different things like this texture, the knockout, just the flower itself. Most people are going to say that's impossible. Was this a raster image or was this a vector image?
It was actually a real image made from a photographer, and we just transformed it into in the end, it's a nano embossing.
And what is a nano embossing? It's smaller than a micro embossing.
Basically,
did you make that up?
Micro embossing is done with phrasing. You just take some material out mechanically wise, and nano embossing, the dye is done by laser, so it's much thinner.
Okay. And then, all right. So then what are the limitations between, a micro emboss? Can I micro emboss any material? Any thickness, or does it have to be a thin material? Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. What we are doing nowadays is with these new technology of the boxes, often we try to apply the micro embossing or the hot foiling directly on the cardboard because it's the most easy way, or not the most easy way, but it's the most efficient way to apply the hot foil on it. But with that one, you can again play. So you can play on different levels. You can do a hot foiling on level, I would say 0 on top of the cardboard. And then you can do another hot foiling on level -1 because you just add.
And you said there was how many different levels?
That's with the laser. There we have 65. So that's why we can laser engrave a grayscale picture. But with in hot foiling and embossing, it's again more level.
In foiling and micro embossing, you don't think of it as layers. No. You just think of it as depth.
What's the nice thing with hot foil stamping on cardboard is that we can apply it straight to the cardboard. Fully automatic, high speed, and if you have a cardboard box and you want to have a 4-color print on it, whether it's screen print, which is very expensive, or you have to print a separate paper and foil it together with the cardboard, which makes the product more expensive. But if you run with any sort of hot foil stamping on cardboard, no matter if it's gray cardboard, black cardboard, colored cardboard, up to 3 mils, it's possible with one process. So, of course, we also try to make the product as interesting as possible price-wise. And if you just have one process you can deal with, then, of course, price comes down.
Yeah, that's the crazy part, is cost is a big part of this. And I think a lot of times when people think of these different combinations, can I show this?
Please don't do that.
You can show the micro embossing.
Okay, I got other examples. All right. So I think when people think of some of these processes, can I show this one?
Yeah.
All right. So when people think of some of these processes, the combinations, like the laser cutting, this micro emboss that's happening, and that's what this is just a foil, one sheet of foil, but you see all these different things happening in there. Is that micro embossing that's creating the effect? When people see this, the first thing they think of is, this is expensive.
I'm going to be rich.
This can't be easy. This has to be really, really expensive. But you're saying that when you're working with a brand, you find a way to make things efficient and realistic.
Yeah.
Would that be correct?
Absolutely. In that case, a micro embossing, I would say it's it's a rather cheap process. It's a simple hot full stamp, one run. Only the dye is maybe double the price, but if you're talking about for a dye like $200, maybe in that case it's $400. So of course, if you make a small run like 100, then the dye is an important figure. But if you produce 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, the dye doesn't plays an important role to the price.
All right. So as we start wrapping up here, what's the one brand that you're like, that's the brand that I want to work with? Is there a brand out there that you want to target?
Yeah, but we already work with. No, kidding.
You're a baller.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's a brand. It's more, what's more important is the mentality, the attitude, the culture, which is more important. So it can be, for us, the nicest brands are if we have a team in front of us who has also this, feels this need to discover new stuff. And that can be a big brand, but it can also easily be a small brand. So I wouldn't say it's connected to a brand. It's more connected to the people to deal with. People is always important.
Yeah. See, I'm picturing you and like Red Bull, and you're doing like a space drop, and it's the invitation for this thing. Like all of a sudden it combines all of your worlds together into like some crazy action-packed packaging event, you know. But talking about events, you guys also have upcoming the Independent Paper Show in April that you guys will be attending. And I think this is an invitation from a previous one. So again, white full stamp, you're showing those white full stamp guys that they're full of shit, that you can actually stamp it anything you want. Then you've got this construction, super cool, because then you get like this nice little angle happening. Anytime that you can break a standard shape into something a little different is memorable. Nice little folder. I can show this, right? All right. I got to check. QR code. Again, most people say QR codes have to be black, but you're like, forget that. We're going to do whatever we want.
That's screen print, the golden.
This is print. Yeah, I was going to say that. I can see a halftone in there. So this is screen printed gold. Yeah.
Actually,
nice.
The whole show, the Independent Paper Show, is held by ourselves with two partners together. So with Bubu, which is a bookbinding company in Switzerland, and Lorenz Bergli, who is, I would say, the most famous screen printer, and he's from Switzerland. And we came up with that idea, bringing all different paper supplier and paper producers out of the world together on one show, showing what's possible with paper.
What is this?
That's a calc paper, or I don't know how you call that in English, like Utoplex in the past, which shines through. And we just were wondering, how does an offset print looks from the backside? So there you can see the offset through the paper. Like this is the front side print and this is the backside print, but it's actually it's a regular offset print. We just were curious, how does that look if you can see through the paper? And maybe another important issue, what IPS, Independent Paper Show, concerns. We have this year Independent Paper Show in April in Geneva, and the first time together with Folco in London, which is in June.
Excellent. So Folco is going to be there. You guys are there. You got a screen. You're pretty much, if anybody's in Europe and they're looking for inspiration for not the typical conference where you go and you're like, oh, look at these bags, look at these boxes, it's the same old type of thing. We want to see something completely new and kind of pushing the envelope in all these different processes. This is definitely the show to visit. Looks like you got like a screen print over Mylar.
Actually, it's a regular offset, LUV offset.
Nice.
So it's just, again, it's the idea.
Yeah, so every single piece of there is a little bit different. And then if somebody goes to the independent show, which is what it's at the Geneva airport, April 24th and 25th. If somebody can't go and visit there, is there anything that they can order from you that's like a kit or something like this where they can get some examples?
And we are always open to send out samples. They just need to get in contact with us, and then we're going to pack a box full of boxes and
Like the one you get.
to unbox.
Yeah, create, you know, so much stuff. And I'll have pictures and videos of all of these guys posted with this. But, you know, there's so many cool different ways to create unboxing experiences. Again, you guys are making these super sharp boxes, really cool. And I think for a consumer, when you hold it, as much as we like to think the consumer's buying it because of my box, they're buying it for the product, but they're not forgetting the product because of the packaging, right? When you hold this and you feel these sharp corners, you're like, wow, that communicates luxury. It communicates precision, quality, care. It's a little bit different. It sounds different. I can't believe the way that sounds, because the sound travels through the one piece of board all the way around. So all these little things communicate aspects of the brand. And if they took this much care in making their packaging through your team, then I think for the consumer, you feel like, I can't imagine the amount of care that they took in making the product. Yeah. Right. And that's where it kind of brings everything together.
The funny thing is, since we sent you the box with the boxes and all the stuff you have at the side of you, so many things happened since, which is, I would say, maybe a couple of weeks ago. There were so many new jobs we have produced in the meantime, which go even again beyond what you see, what you have in your box. So, like I mentioned, every week we come up with new approaches.
What is that?
That's again a box. So it's the top part of the box, and it's again a hot foil full surface around the corners of the box of this mountain massif from Switzerland.
Well, so then it's a foil covered. It's all foil. What's the white? Is that offset?
The white is the cardboard. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Nice. And then how do you create that texture on the mountains? Is that micro emboss?
Actually, it's not really micro embossing. It's a hot foil with just with thin lines. Halftone, yeah.
Wow. And that's the thing that makes things really difficult, right? Most people will say no halftone that small because it'll fill in, it'll look messy. But you guys
that's why we produce so many cards and ideas for ourselves. Because if you haven't seen it before, sometimes you can't imagine. And sometimes the graphic designer can't imagine what's possible. And if we come up with a halftone picture and we show that to graphic designers, often then it starts to work. And that's what we always try to create, a certain ping pong game with the client or graphic designer, back and forth, starting from the beginning on, where there's no idea based. For example, that one was the same. That's a drink was called adaptogenic drinks. And they wanted to produce a Christmas box which guides you a little bit through their products and through their history. And since it's a non-alcoholic drink but has the same effect as an alcoholic drink, we wanted to create something which plays with the light, and you feel like, I want to discover what's inside. And once you open it, it falls down and gives you the whole history, and then underneath you have the goods. Yeah,
you've got space for a bottle and some glasses. Yeah. And then is that this same kind of assembly?
Yeah.
Just to come back to that discussion, halftone with micro embossing, since whether you have film or you don't have film, so it's difficult to make a halftone, but we still can apply a halftone picture on hot foil, where the dye producer told us it's not possible. So we said, let's going to do it, and that's what we did here. That's actually a halftone picture.
Wow, that's foil.
And depending on the reflection, it becomes negative. But it's difficult to show you here with light. But actually, it's just a gold film we brought to the picture.
And they said it was impossible, so you did it.
That's it.
All right, guys. I think this is awesome. Do you have another example of something really cool you got?
We could sit here for a whole week.
We can sit here forever. No, man. I think this has been awesome. I think anybody that's out there and is interested in just learning more about it, Sonderegger.ch. I'll have a link in the show notes, but definitely find you on Instagram, find you online, look at some of the stuff, because if you don't see it, you don't know it's possible, and you can't imagine it, you can't design it. And then if you need somebody that can actually produce it, then you can reach out directly to you guys. Do you produce for companies in the US, or do you only produce for companies in Europe, or does it matter?
Doesn't matter. The whole world.
Everybody go to fucking
welcome to
Sonderegger.
challenge us.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? It's like you're looking for a challenge, because that's what makes it fun. Yeah. If it's the same old thing, then it gets boring.
That's it. And it's always fun to combine older ideas with new technologies. So recently we just went into our cellar and we were digging into the cellar what old machines we have in there, and then we found an old machine which was built up by my granddad, and it was lost a little bit, and now we come up with this old envelopes with a solid back with the cardboard, but we can now play with the technologies we have nowadays. So that makes it again quite interesting to mix old ideas and new technologies and come up with a new thing.
Yeah, that's amazing. Right. Just having the 3 generations, having the equipment, having that knowledge that's been passed down. Now you can combine things. Yeah. And a lot of times manufacturers will be like, all right, that machine's old, we got to get it out of here. And then that knowledge is gone, the equipment's gone, the possibilities are gone, and then you just focus on what's next. But being able to combine things is I think what makes you guys super, super special. So
thanks.
I appreciate you guys being on here. Thank you guys so much. Like I said, go to Sonderegger.ch, find out what the hell's possible by challenging these guys.
There's even a movie, a video. Yep. I bet you have seen that one on our site, didn't you?
The movie about you? That movie's amazing. And then, I'll have a link to that too.
It was meant to produce a making of this nice job we have done for GF. And we have seen once we have seen the movie, so, fuck, this is not a movie of the making of the movie, but us.
Yeah, you guys are more interesting. You guys are crazy.
It was like,
no, man. Super, super cool.